my 2019 season recap. The 2019 season, it started out with a ton of miles. In the first 3 months I had more miles and way more time on the bike than I did in 2018, combined. I rode more than half of my total miles for 2019 in those first 3 months. I wanted to have a solid base for the season, and I wanted to be closer to the fastest dudes around. Early spring we went on a vacation south. We stopped in Richmond, Virginia for a family wedding, and my wife found a race the following day, a mountain bike race, and she said, "Do it!" So that's what I did. I raced my first race of the season down in Virginia and was able to do pretty well in their elite field, placing 4th. I wish I would have ran the GoPro for this race. The race started very fast like all races, and shortly after we had a group of about 7 guys. The racer in 5th place clipped a tree, and that caused myself and another guy to lose the front group. It was tough trying to catch back up on a twisty, technical course that you've never ridden before. It even had a tricky boulder section that I ran through both times because I didn't know the line and I didn't want to crash. I felt good during this whole race, I pushed hard, and my plan was to continue to get faster. Yankee Springs Race 2 is set up in a time trial format by sending one racer off at a time. I started good, I started fast. Mark, a super fast dude, caught up to me and I was able to hang on him for a good amount of time, which gave me some confidence. 2/3 of the way through the first lap it happened. The lower back started tightening. I don't know why, but it sucks the power out of my legs and it really slows me down. I did do some stretching on the bike as I hung behind a rider for a bit on the second lap until I thought I was feeling better, and then I made a charge again. Not a terrible result, but also not what I was hoping for. I placed 11th with a time of 1 hour 33 minutes and 4 seconds. In an elite category that had a lot of talent in it, and I was shooting for the top 10. The third race of the year, a race I usually do well at, again wanting to crack into the top 10. Mud, sweat, and beers. The announcer was on point, and if you haven't, just get up there on race day and listen to this genius on the mic. The community is great up in Traverse City, and I was ready to go. Gun goes off and Jason and I get caught in a bad spot, and we have the worst start we've ever had. We make up for it and are eventually doing a lot better as we move up in the field as the race moves on. This story is cut short because we ended up going the wrong way on a course, and you can see the footage. The course official was pointing which way to go after we'd already gone by. I lost a good amount of time, and that was pretty much the end of my race, placing 21st with a time of 1 hour 26 minutes and 1 second. Next, Hanson Hills. I love the single track and the course here. I came into this race with severe breathing issues, as the allergy season was tougher than normal and it kept my asthma just out of my control. As much as I love this course, again I couldn't breathe well and my back was at it again. I did slow down and stretched and latched onto a fast expert rider and rode behind him, placing 7th in my category with a time of 2 hours 13 minutes and 58 seconds. After the race I spoke with a friend about my back and also about my weight. 175 pounds, and how it probably would benefit me to lose a little weight. I made an appointment for the doctor and was able to get an inhaler that controls the asthma before it starts, and this was huge.
Oh, let's get ready to cycle!
Race 5 is fun. It's set up World Cup style where you do laps, and it boasts 100 plus feet of climbing per mile. The bad weather held off for the race as it was supposed to rain, but it didn't start doing that until my cool down after the race. At the start, I was in the front group from the get-go and was able to hang on for a while, but the climbing was crushing me compared to my competitors, as it looked like they were just floating up the hills. I managed to have a good race here, placing 4th with a time of 1 hour 52 minutes and 10 seconds. Things are starting to look better. Still thinking about that 175 pounds and how it affects my climbing. Traverse City Trails Festival is next, and that's race 6 of the season. I like this race, a lot of less ridden single track that takes you to places you've never been. A short while after the start, there was a group of 5 to 7 of us, Eventually that group split apart as Kyle made a move and put the hammer down. We were on tight single track, so I waited and finally got an opportunity and took it, pedaling fast around the guy in front of me into a sharp corner and unfortunately burped my tire a little bit. This made cornering difficult for the rest of the race, but I still tried putting the power down on the straights and the climbs. I managed to pull off third for this race with a time of 1 hour, 43 minutes, and 40 seconds. Race number 7, Big M, a long climbing hill in this race for Michigan, and you have to climb it multiple times. For this race, not very many elites showed up, but a guy did come from out of state who normally races in the Wars Cup to have a shot at winning this race. The Wars Cup is a very competitive mountain bike race series held in Wisconsin. Check it out. The race started and I was thinking that I actually may have a shot at winning my first ever elite race. Lap 1, third place behind us took a bad line through some sand, and then around another tight corner, the Wars Cup guy in front of me had his front tire slide out and he went down. By default, I'm in first place and I continue to push. I look back after a while and there is no one behind me. Toward the end of the second lap, the Wars Cup guy started to catch back up. He rides behind me for a bit and then takes the front, and I cannot keep on his wheel. He eventually drops me on the third lap and takes the win. I follow through in second place. That hill was a struggle for me. The hills at the end were even more of a struggle for me. And I did get caught by a couple of expert riders in this race, which did not help the season confidence. Still, it was second place with a time of 1 hour, 49 minutes, and 34 seconds. I managed to stay pretty optimistic even after bad races. Maybe it pushes me to work harder and to get faster. Race 8 is one of my favorite courses, Glacial Hills. It's flowy, tight corners that surprise you here and there, fun, fast downhill sections. What's not to like? We're off, and I find myself, like normal, struggling to keep up at the start. These young bucks are all out up the climb. We hit the single track, and I am not where I want to be and try to catch back up to first and second place by passing people on the single track. I managed to pull them from a 30-second gap down to a 10-second gap, but that was all I had in me. If someone is crushing it in front of you and they've got a 10-second gap, that's really hard to make up. I settled into my own pace, and fourth place caught up and we rode together for a long time. Eventually, he got a leg cramp that slowed him down. So there will be no epic sprint for third place like I thought there was going to be. On a crazy side note, a huge tree fell during the race. I did manage third place. I did not have any issues, and I actually felt really good during this race. I was very happy to be on the podium with fast guys with a time of 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 49 seconds. That was the confidence booster I needed, and I decided to add another race into the schedule. Off to the Mayberry time trial I go. No pre-ride, and I had not been on this course since 2015. All I remember is that there's some golf cart path sections. Mark, the super fast dude, he's off in front of me, and I start second. I'm hammering pretty good on lap 1. Definitely could have used a pre-ride on this course as I misjudged some corners here and there and take some wrong line choices. Second lap, I do much better while running into a lot of traffic and still manage second behind Mark with a time of 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 39 seconds. Not too bad, and the confidence goes up. The 10th race was another last-second decision, the Lord of the Springs. Before the race, I asked my wife if she was going to do the long race or the short race, and she said the long race. I think I said something like, "Oh, I thought you'd want to do the short one." So she signed herself up for the long one and me up for the short one. The race starts good. I'm leading it out. I feel good and actually think that we're going kind of slow. We make our way onto the gravel and eventually onto the sandy dirt road. The pace picked up just before this section, and everyone was fighting for good position. The sand makes a mess out of the field. I get cut off due to the sand making the guy that just passed me do a crazy slide and turn, and I have to cyclocross it for a little bit, but jump back onto the bike and head into the single track where things get bad. The traffic was absolutely insane. After we made it through that mess, which broke up our field completely, I catch up to Mike, and we work together to catch up to the first place guy, who somehow made it through the single track around everyone with ease. The three of us work together for a bit. We go into the next single track, and we lose Mike. And then we work together to finish, and I take second place behind Logan, and I feel great. On to the Bearclaw Epic. They split the race this year so that the sport and beginner racers were not on the course at the same time as the expert and elites, which made it safer for both groups. The Cadillac pathway is fast, and I think we averaged over 17 miles an hour for this race. You just haul butt the whole time. I managed to keep up with the front group and even did my share of pulling. Toward the end of the race, I fell off their pace a bit, and then I was separated on a single track section behind a slower rider, and I thought he said go on the inside, but he must not have, as I rubbed his tire and crashed. I jumped back up, caught back up to fourth place that had went by me, and pushed through for a solid fourth place finish with a time of 1 hour, 45 minutes, and 8 seconds. I am racing good, so let's do some more races. Another last minute sign up, Custer's Last Stand Time Trial, the race that fights human trafficking. If you haven't raced it, get there and support a great cause while having an awesome time on the bike. I was feeling really good for this race. I was doing great from the start, smashing the course, another course I had not been on in a while. Then, about 2/3 of the way through lap 1, I catch an unfortunate thick branch that knocks off my chain, bends my derailleur, and wedges the chain on the outside of one of the pulley wheels. Thankfully, my shifting only acted crazy when I was going fast. A quarter of the way through the second lap, Dan caught up to me and I followed his tire the rest of the way. It was so nice to have a guide on the course. All I had to do was pedal hard and follow his line. Dan managed to take first, Tom second, and I was right there in third. This was awesome. Another podium with fast guys with a time of 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 13 seconds. As a bonus, I donated my cash back to the cause. 2 huge races left in the season. Up next is Peak to Peak. I wanted to see the people that had signed up for this race online like the other races do. That way I can think about things before the race, like who I want to try and hang with, who I want to be in front of, all that other race stuff. Well, they didn't have an updated list online, so I didn't know who was racing until packet pickup. I was really stressed about this race. This was another race I wanted to crack into the top 10 because of the good amount of talent. Here we go. Pace is faster than normal. This is another one of those courses that is a speedway. I again am not where I want to be at the start, but a lot of guys aren't. As the race moves on, there's still a pretty big pack towards the end of the first lap, and this is where I start to fall off. We get to the hills, and my back is at it again. I get mad. I start self-talking and saying that I'm just going to pull off and stop this race so I don't make my back worse. Instead of the negative talk, I stretch down the downhill. It starts to feel better. I catch up to the group in front of me, and I pull that group for a little bit of lap 2 as we catch more racers. Just before the big climb again, I let some other guys pull, and we pretty much stick together up the hill, dropping a couple off the back. Third lap, I somehow find myself pulling the group again for a pretty long time. I pull off and no one comes up to pull, so I continue. We start to get toward the finish again, and here are the hills. A couple of guys take off faster than I can keep up with. I drop a few guys. I also catch Scott. I've never beat him before in any race. And during the race, I didn't realize it was him. I guess there is a first time for everything. I try catching the 3 guys that are in front of me, but once you get to the top of the ski hill, everyone can send it down the downhill. I roll across the line in 11th. I feel good about it, but again, I am 1 spot off from my goal. The 2 powerhouses, Alexi and Jordan, take first and second. Remember those names for the next race. The last race of the season. The race everyone looks forward to. Race number 14 of the year, the Iceman Cometh Challenge. The hype is real. The atmosphere is dope. You can actually buy dope to calm your nerves. The stoke is high. The excitement leading into this race is unreal. You can feel it as you enter the resort to check in and pick up your packet. Racing in the pro elite field, there's no line to wait amongst the 6,000 racers that take on this challenge. You bump into people you know, you have great conversations, you wish everyone well for race day. 2019 Iceman was a muddy one. Leading up to the race, everything was running on time. Things seemed to work out perfect. We pulled into the airport. I talked my wife into racing the pro as well, so we were together. I unload the bikes and start my warm-up. I had decided I was going to run my hardtail because I knew the course conditions were terrible. I started pedaling and my bike was not shifting normal. I looked down and the derailleur was bent like someone had purposefully done so. This totally wrecked my pregame for this race. I scrambled to bend it back and get it working properly. I decided I would swap front tires on my hardtail to the full suspension and ride that, only to learn that the spacing was different. I had a decision to make, and I was having a hard time making that decision. I rolled the full suspension around, but my problem was that it had Furious Freds on, basically a tire with no traction for these terrible conditions. I messed around with the derailleur more and got it pretty good and was able to get kinda warmed up in between fixing things, but the mental prep was not there. I was late to the start line, I was still not happy, half of me didn't want to race and I almost didn't, but obviously I could not miss out on this race. The atmosphere, the camaraderie. I started with the wrong mindset. I should have moved up further towards the front, for I know the single track was going to be a bottleneck. All the mud made my shifting funny when things go fast, and when things were slow I had a lot of chain suck. I was not giving up, my bike was going to make it to the finish. I pressed on and decided to have fun. Once we were through Mudville, the pace picked up. Dan, the Dan from Custer's Last Stand, was offering encouragement. I fell off the group and then somehow dug deep, and Dan looked back at one point and said, "Hey, he's back from the dead." We stuck together until the end where our group slowly fell apart. I was still happy to finish 36th in the pro race, my best to date. My goal was top 30, only slightly off, but the atmosphere made up for it. Alexi wins his first Iceman against some of the best mountain bikers in the world, and Jordan hit the top 10. Hopefully you had a fun and challenging season. After all, that's how we grow as people, through challenging situations. That's what defines us. That's why we overcome the obstacles. If everything went smoothly, would we really work hard at things? I love this sport. It pushes you to new levels constantly. Here's looking forward to 2020, wishing everyone an epic season ahead.